Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Williams, a program consultant in the Office of Assessment Accountability in the Division of Assessment Support. And today I will have my wonderful colleague, Ben Riley, who is also a consultant in our office. And today we're going to bring you the presentation on accountability indicator training for progress on English language proficiency. Well, with English learner progress, it is one of our state indicators in the accountability system. And so that's the one we're going to be discussing today. It is based off of the access assessment. It is included, this progress is included in the calculation using a English learner growth table that we're going to be looking at. And then I'll be giving you some examples too of what that's going to look like. Just wanted to kind of let you know about the overall accountability weights, and you'll notice here for our English learner progress for both, for all three, elementary, middle, and high school, we have, it carries that 5% weight for our accountability. For that, federal law requires the great emphasis on, reading and mathematics in our English language progress at elementary and middle school. And if you do not have an EL population, then the weight gets proportionally distributed toward the other indicators. And so that 5% would go toward the other indicators that you have available. Our agenda today, we'll kind of go over why we have this particular indicator. We'll go over the information about status and about change. And then we will end with our English learner long-term goals and then finish with our presentation for today. So we've got a lot of things to cover today, so let's get started. With Kentucky's ESSA plan, course, it is based upon the progress on English language proficiency indicator. That's one of the components of our Kentucky Every Student Succeeds Act plan that we have. It is, you will notice that for this, it does cover the points from the EL table based on the current composite score from the English language proficiency assessment on access and also alternate access. And you'll see those particular growth tables, and it'll be able to show progress on this indicator for our schools and districts to be able to look at that. And we'll look at the show how our schools and districts must look at individual student scores from previous year to current year to be able to start with status. And then later in the presentation, Ben will talk to us about change. So let's start with status and let's go into it because, like I said, with our plan, we go into with our access, we have to start with our tables. And so once we get our scores back, what you do is you look at those particular scores, your overall composites for your students from previous year to current year. And for access, it goes from proficiency levels of a 1.0 to a 6.0, 1 being the lowest and 6 being the highest. And you'll also know that prior year score will be on the left side of the table and current year will be up at the cross at the top of the table. And then when you go and get your scores and you look at, because we gave those particular scores back on spreadsheets for you and let you know what during data review, we let you know what your previous score was and what your current score was for access. And so, and we also showed you how many points off of this growth table that each student, was awarded to you based on their scores. We also want to let you know that with the exit criteria for access, it is an overall composite of a 4.5 on a tier BC. And when you look at your students, you're going to, their scores, you'll start with our previous score from last year, and then you'll look at the current year for this past year's administration of access. And what you're going to do is you're going to see what the student's previous score was and their current score was, and see where those intersect on this particular growth table. And where they intersect is where the point value is given. And those were those points that you see on those spreadsheets that we had back in August during data review. Also, for our alternate access, we do have growth tables for that. And of course, you'll know a difference between that because those go from proficiency levels of an A1 to a P2 for alternate access. The only one that will go up to a P3 is the writing domain only, A1 being the lowest performance level, and P2 being the highest level that alternate access goes to. And just like on our access table previously, you'll see what the prior year is on the left side, and then the current year up at the top. And once you see those scores on, once you have those previous and current year on the table, then you look at those particular ones and see where they intersect to be able to tell you how much growth that the student gave you. Of course, these points, they go from a 0 to a 140 is the scale that this goes on for access and alternate access. And I just want to kind of give you some examples of the product for EL progress. For a positive change to you, if the student's previous score was a 2.0 and now their current score is a 2.5, then when you go back to the growth table and see where those two intersect, you'll be able to see that that student would give you positive change and give you 60 points. Now, if you had a student who was at a 3.5 previously, and then their current score on access this year is a 3.0, you would notice when those two scores intersect on that previous table for access, that student would give you 0 points. And whether you have 0 points or 60 points or 80 points or 140 points or etc., all of those points count for each student. Now, to be able to calculate this, what you're going to do is you're going to compare students' WIDA access or alternate access performance from last year to the previous year using the EL tables. You will assign those points like I showed you on the previous slides, how you get those points, where we see those from the spreadsheets, how we go to the graphs, to the tables, to be able to see those grade tables, to be able to see those points. And then what you're going to do is you would add up all those points, and then you're going to average those scores to get the calculation for status. Now, for a student to be counted, of course, the students has to be 100 days in the schools and the districts for to be counted as a full academic year and be reported for you for that particular indicator for status. Also, students must be tested in the same assessment. That means, both years, prior year and previous year. Previous year and current year, they have to have the same, be tested in the same assessment for access. And then they would also have to have the same for alternate access for both years. And like I said, I went through the point values that you have. Also, those who met the in count of 30 students for elementary, middle, and high school, they will that will be included for status. And then to get to that calculation, what you're going to do is you're going to take the total amount of EL growth points you have from 0 to 140, add all of those up, and you're going to divide by the total population of EL students that have a prior year and a current year score. The status scores, of course, represent the current year outcome for a given indicator, and for our English learner progress, it is also calculated according to the metric. That is the points assigned based on the student level growth as measured by a value table. And I showed you both of those value tables previously for both access and alternate access. And then with the status levels, we also have, there are 5 status levels that you have going from very low to very high. And you'll see those colors indicated as you see on the screen. And then that concludes that particular piece on status. And we're going to move into change. And my wonderful colleague, Ben Riley, is going to talk to you about with the EL indicator with change.
Thanks, Chris. I'm Ben Riley, and I'm the Systems IT Consultant with the Division of Assessment and Accountability Support. Let's go ahead and dive in deeper into the understanding of the change score for each school. The process can be broken down into a few key steps. First, we begin with the status score. This score isn't just a static number, it represents change. It's calculated by comparing a student's performance level on either the WIDA access or the alternate access tests from year to year. We use the EL tables to allocate points based on their performance. And then we take the average of those points to get our status score. Now, to understand the change, we compare the status score from the prior year to the current year. So here's the formula. Current year status minus prior year status. This gives us the change score. Once we have the change score, we add it to the 2023 status score, and this will give us what we call the indicator score. Simply put, the current year score plus the change score equals the indicator score. However, there are limits to consider. If for some reason the indicator score is less than 0, we set it to 0. On the other hand, if it exceeds 140, we cap it at 140. This ensures that our scores remain within a meaningful and manageable range. These steps ensure that we get a comprehensive understanding of the school's change. Let's take a look at an example of a change score. The process involves comparing a school's performance from the previous year to the current year. We use what's referred to as the EL table to assign points for this comparison. Chris shared these tables earlier in her presentation. Once we've assigned these points based on the performance levels, we average the scores. Let's take a real-world example and extrapolate it. For 2023, let's say a school achieved a current year status score of 75. Looking back at 2022, their prior year status score was 70. Now, let's compute the change score. We subtract the prior year's score from the current year's score. In our example, 75 minus 70 gives us a change score of 5. But that's not all. When we take this change score and add it to the current year's status score, we arrive at what we call the indicator score. Adding our change score of 5 to the current year's status score of 75, we get an indicator score of 80. So in essence, the indicator score encapsulates both the present performance and the change from the previous year, giving us a comprehensive measure of change. At its core, determining the change score is straightforward. It's a basic subtraction of the prior year's status score from the current year's status score. Think of it as measuring the progression of or regression from one year to the next. And the beauty of this method is consistency. No matter which indicator we're examining, the calculation remains unchanged. Every indicator's change score is computed in the exact same manner. Now, once we have our change score, it's important to classify it. We categorize these scores into 5 distinct change levels: declined significantly, declined, maintained, increased, and finally increased significantly. These levels produce a clearer, more intuitive understanding of a student or group's trajectory from the previous year. So, to give a quick formulaic representation, current year status score minus prior year status score equals our change score. Now, a key point to remember when we use the prior year scores to help us calculate these change scores, they do not directly influence our indicator performance ratings. Their primary function is to give us a benchmark, a point of comparison, to see how far we've come or how far we've receded. Now, let's simplify things a bit and understand the indicator score. Think of the indicator score as a blend of two components, the status score and the change score. In essence, the indicator score is a straightforward summation of both of these scores. So when we talk about the indicator score, we're essentially capturing the current status along with the progress or change made from the prior year. Imagine it this way. By evaluating both where you are and how much you've progressed, the indicator performance rating offers a more comprehensive understanding of performance dynamics. It's a holistic way of combining static performance, change, and providing a clear, color-coded snapshot. Do note that this does not influence the indicator performance rating. The indicator performance rating is one of the 5 color-coded performance levels designated for each state indicator. This table is a culmination of our earlier discussions on both change scores and status scores. Remember, both change level and status level have 5 distinct levels, which range from decline significantly at the baseline to increase significantly at the pinnacle. These levels help us categorize and better understand the journey of performance from one year to the next, as well as the current status of performance. However, it's vital to keep in mind that behind these categorical levels are actual numerical values. Both the change score and the status score are represented by these numbers, providing granular insight into where exactly performance lies within a given level. Our indicator performance ratings table combines these two elements, the change and status levels. By examining this table, you'll get a comprehensive understanding of how different combinations of change and status influence the final performance rating. So, as we delve into the details of this table, remember, we're integrating both quantitative aspects of the scores and the qualitative insights provided by the levels to present a holistic picture of performance. Let's transition to an overarching perspective with our overall scores. These scores provide a collective reflection of the outcomes across all available indicators. To arrive at these scores, it's not just a simple summation. We carefully apply specific weights to each indicator, ensuring that each contributes proportionally to the bigger picture. Take, for example, our high school overall score calculation. Starting with the state assessment results in reading and mathematics, we have an indicator score which is weighted at 45%. That's multiplied by 0.45. Next, our state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing indicator score has a weight of 20%, so that's multiplied by 0.20. Continuing on, our English learner progress indicator score is weighted at 5%. Following this, we have the quality of school climate and safety indicator, also known as the QSCS indicator, which holds a 4% weight. Then post-secondary readiness makes up 20%. And lastly, the graduation rate is given a weight of 6%. When we factor in all these individual weighted scores, the sum gives us our overall score. This methodology ensures that each accountability indicator contributes in a manner that reflects its weighted significance in the broader calculation of overall score of our high school students. Now, to make this data more digestible and immediately comprehensible, Kentucky adopted a color rating system. At a glance, these colors provide a clear and intuitive sense of a school's performance. Picture a spectrum. At one end, we have red, which is indicative of the areas where there's significant room for improvement. And as we traverse across the spectrum, the colors shift, each representing a progressive uptick in performance. This pinnacle of achievement is represented by blue, which is for exceptional performance. This color-coded system is designed to provide a swift visual assessment of performance, making it easier and more accessible for stakeholders to grasp the status and areas of focus. Let's take a little bit and talk about school configurations now. When we talk about standard school configurations for accountability purposes, we are usually referencing the following. Elementary schools, which span from kindergarten through fifth grade, commonly denoted as K through 5. Middle schools, which covers sixth grade to eighth grade, represented as grades 6 through 8. And lastly, high schools, which capture the student journey from ninth grade all the way to the 12th grade, or 9 to 12. But of course, this is not a one-size-fits-all situation, and we recognize that. Schools come in a variety of configurations to cater to the diverse needs of our local communities. So let's explore some of these alternate setups. Schools that start from kindergarten but only go up to the fifth grade would be classified as elementary for grades 1 through 5. The K-8 model, they would categorize grades 1 through 5 as elementary and grades 6 through 8 as middle school. For those schools encompassing K through 6, the entirety of grades 1 through 6 falls under the elementary banner. Schools that have a narrower focus, say K through 3, would obviously categorize grades 1 through 3 as elementary. The expansive K through 12 schools cover the full spectrum, grades 1 through 5 as elementary, 6 through 8 for middle school, and without any surprises, 9 through 12 through high school. A unique case arises for students that only offer ninth grade, labeled as A1 schools. For accountability reporting, they'd be folded into the broader 10 to 12 school configuration. It's crucial to grasp these configurations since they underpin many of our accountability decisions and reporting mechanisms. With this understanding, we can ensure a consistent approach across all school types, regardless of their unique setups. Let's go ahead and talk now about feeder schools and the intricacies of feeder schools within Kentucky's accountability system. Imagine a school that only caters to the youngest of students, perhaps kindergarten to first grade or up to second grade. These are our K1 and K2 schools. Now, while these schools might not have grades that are typically tested in our Kentucky accountability system, they play a crucial role in the educational ecosystem. Here's why. These foundational schools lay the groundwork for students' subsequent educational experiences. They eventually feed or send their students to higher level schools. This unique aspect in Kentucky's approach is that these feeder schools take on the accountability classification of the higher level schools where the majority of their students enroll. To give you a clearer picture, K1 and K2 schools primarily feed into elementary schools. There's also a similar pathway for ninth grade schools that predominantly feed into high schools. Now, someone might ask, how do we ensure this alignment and accountability? Here's where Kentucky's meticulous student information system comes into play. Through this system, we can track the journey of students from schools with a high grade of 2 or lower. We observe where these students move on to for their subsequent grades. For a feeder school to be assigned the same federal status as a higher level school, a staggering 90% of the students should be attending that particular higher level institution. To put it in simpler terms, the connection between a feeder school and the corresponding higher level school is so strong that almost all the students from the feeder school continue their education at that higher institution. As of right now in Kentucky, we show a one-to-one school connection using this tracking process. Another reason it is important to understand feeder schools and their impact on EL accountability scores is considering schools that have a unique grade structure, such as those offering grade 3 through 6. In these situations, it's essential to note that EL students, those who undertook tests at their preceding feeder school in grades 1 and 2, could contribute to the minimum N value for our indicator. Now that we've discussed feeder schools and grade structures, let's move on to discussing EL students who are included and not included in the access and alternate access calculation. As we navigate the intricacy of the access and alternate access calculation, it's important to clarify which students are not included in the assessment measure. Each of these exclusions has specific reasons that uphold the integrity and consistency of our data. Let's dive into those specific categories of who are not included. Kindergarten students. These students only have a current year score, so they naturally don't have a prior year to reference. Students who repeat a grade, for example, those who were in grade 3 last year and remain in grade 3 this year. Non-participation instances, and this could be either from the previous year or a current one. Assessment switchers. Some students might switch between the alternate access and the standard access, which affects their inclusion. Grade level promotions. Say a student jumps from grade 10 to grade 12. Interstate movements. So a student who took access or alternate access in another state prior to coming to Kentucky. And then non-attempts, those who did not even attempt the test in the preceding year. Those nuances are critical for maintaining the accuracy and consistency of our access calculations. By understanding who isn't included, we gain a clear picture of the data that we are analyzing and ensure that our outcomes are based on consistent criteria. The students who are included, though, are tested in both current and prior year, and students who tested in the prior year or received the lowest score, but not tested in the current year without an approved medical non-participation. ESSA mandates that we set ambitious long-term goals. The core aspiration is to have the percentage of students who score below proficient levels. And we're not talking about an indefinite timeline here. Our aim is to achieve this significant reduction by the year 2030, taking 2019 as our reference year. However, as we all know, life had its way of throwing a curveball with the COVID-19 pandemic, and it has affected our instructional and accountability timelines. Recognizing the challenges the pandemic posed, there has been a shift. Every long-term goal set from 2020 onwards will be postponed by 2 years. In simple terms, the goal originally set for 2020 is slated for 2022. And our ambitious 2030 target now moves to 2032. Specifically focusing on our English language learners, our benchmarks are based upon the WIDA access for ELLs. This assessment focuses on progression toward proficiency. The system is straightforward. From a student's first year, we design a 5-year trajectory. The objective for each student to achieve proficiency by the end of this 5-year period. If a student's performance aligns or surpasses this trajectory target, they're deemed on track. Let's change gears and talk about where you can find detailed data on our English learners. For anyone new to this, the primary hub for such data is the Kentucky School Report Card, often abbreviated as SRC. This platform is designed to be user-friendly and transparent. Let's talk about how to navigate that. So step 1, access the school report card. Here you have the option to either deep dive into specific school or district data or take a more panoramic view with our statewide data. Part 2 now, once you are in that system, direct your attention to the left-hand side of your interface. There's a dedicated tab called School Accountability. This is where the English learner metrics, among other key indicators, are housed. I truly encourage everyone to familiarize themselves with the SRC, as learning that data can be empowering to how you implement instruction in your school district. Here are our other trainings being offered with the release of the Accountability Indicator trainings for the 2023-2024 school year. If you have questions regarding indicators, please feel free to call our office or email us, and we will be happy to support you in any way that we can. On behalf of Chris and I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation. And I want you to know that we appreciate the hard work that you put in that makes a difference in our Kentucky students in their daily lives. If you have any questions, please email myself, Ben Riley, or Chris Williams, and we are happy to help. Thank you again for watching this presentation.